What it do, family of one? Just be with the Faces of Source podcast. We got Lori Ivey on deck tonight, and man, I'm so stoked, bro. This is a person that I absolutely love and have been rocking with on my ascension path for a while now. And just so you know what Faces of Source is all about, it's about kind of showcasing and learning about the Faces of Source, all the different people that Source is, all right? So we're about to bring Lori on. Lori is an amazing, awesome healer. She is so dope, bro. She channels mudras, does a lot of light language. She is so amazing. She is one of my favorite human beings, one of my favorite divine feminines. And man, I'm just so blessed to bring her on. So I can't wait. I'm going to just go ahead and bring her on, guys. And here's our amazing guest, Lori Ivey.
Hey, V. Thanks for having me on.
What's up, Lori? What's up? I'm so stoked about this.
I'm hearing a lot of feedback through your mic. I don't know if it's just
on
my end or what.
Is that better?
All right, talk again.
Is that better?
Yes, there we go.
All right, we're good to
hey,
go.
So we're doing it. How's it going?
Yeah. I'm good. All right, we'll wait till some people get on here for a second and let them kind of get the circulation going. Like I told them before you got on here, the podcast is just going to be about you. And we've already spoke about that. So we want to know about who the heck are you, man? A different face of Source. You know, that was the idea of my podcast. So we've been doing
and it's awesome
How long
too.
Have we known each other? How long have we known each other?
I don't know. I've been wondering about that because I know it's been some time, like definitely a few years, right?
2018, maybe?
Maybe. I'm not sure. I know that we can look on Facebook to see how long we've been friends. And I've wondered that too. So we should check it out and see.
Definitely. All right. So where were you born? Where were you raised? What was your childhood like? I want to know that starting out.
I was born in Milledgeville, Georgia, which is directly in the center of the state. And it's kind of an interesting place too, because it actually used to be the capital of Georgia a long time ago, I think when they first settled. And it's a very weird place. There was, it's actually the home of the biggest insane asylum in the world is in my hometown. There were 11 prisons there, including a women's prison when I was growing up. So that's the vortex that I incarnated into, which I've looked back and I felt that it's definitely like an indication of the esoteric stuff, right? Like that dark energy that got brought in. So I definitely understand about healing the ley lines and things like that, where we're born, and we're born into these specific places for a reason. And my parents got divorced when I was 5, and then he disappeared. And then
so your dad wasn't around?
No, he stepped back in for a little bit, but he just didn't seem to want to have a relationship with me and my brother. So
is that a big one you're working on, is masculine wounds in this lifetime?
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. And that was when I was younger. I've been able to have a deep understanding from when I was a child.
Right.
About my relationship with my mom and my dad. And so there was a lot of acceptance for me when I was a kid. And my mom married someone who was not a nice man. I grew up playing in prison yards with other children and just very abusive, alcoholic, just that type of scenario. So I knew that my mother was going through a very difficult time, and she wasn't able to hold space for us as her children. And of course, I was able to learn a lot of that as I got older, but I did seem to have like an insight to what was going on. So I didn't carry around.
Did you feel like you lived in survival mode a lot, all the time?
Well, it's interesting because they left me alone a lot. So I was mostly left to my own devices in my room. They didn't let me do a lot of stuff. So I read a lot of books, and I was into a lot of music. And so I was left alone a lot. And I feel like that was my protection from my guides, even though I didn't know it then.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's just like beautiful almost in essence for a child. Like,
it's amazing to look back to see how protected I was. I mean, I was physically abused, and there was a lot of mental abuse and all of that took place. But when I look back, I'm so thankful that I was able to be just left alone in my own space. I mean, I didn't get shown a lot of love in that aspect, but
Right.
at least I was able to be in my own space and explore what made me happy.
Right. Right. That's awesome. So you did have some self-expression alone and wasn't just like stifled constantly by your outside world.
Right, exactly.
Good.
And
Good.
I give a lot of thanks now when I look back that I grew up in the country in middle Georgia, and I didn't get into all of my dysfunction until later in
Right.
my own path. I moved out when I was 16 years old. I had a full-time job. I had a car. I had an apartment.
Right.
But when I think back on that now, it's like, how in the world did I do that? But when we're really empowered in our path, it seems like we just drive straight through and there's nothing that can stop us, right?
Definitely. So, like your puberty years, what were those like? You know, like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Like, how was life for you then? Like, was it? Did you fit into the crowd? How'd you feel in life then?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because I've thought about this a lot. I was not necessarily in with the popular crowd, but I knew everybody. So
Right.
it was just and I didn't experience a lot of bullying, which is really interesting to me. I feel like in high school, I had like a protective, you know, aura around me. And I just remember feeling like I had goggles on. I had my few friends, even though I knew other people and I would talk to other people,
Right.
but I just had these blinders on just to keep moving forward, get through it. I didn't like high school at all. That was
Right.
when my home life was starting to get really tumultuous for me and my soul wanted to move out. So I was in the band. I played the clarinet for 7 years. I marched. I was
You
in
was
the
in the band?
flag corps. Yeah, I was in the marching band. I played clarinet for 7 years. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought. So you went on like marching band stuff, and with the whole,
Yes.
then you guys like practice your ass off and shit.
Right. Yeah. All the
You're one of
football
them girls.
games.
That's
Yeah. So
crazy. You
that
went
was kind of
hard.
an outlet for me.
That was a
My
discipline for
mom.
you, though, I would say.
Yeah.
Like, to actually commit to that, and to, that's some, like, for me, I look back on all of our like history. I look at everybody, and I'm like, I see that a lot of us did something to teach us how to be really disciplined.
Right.
Whether it was sports, whatever it was, something to kind of like teach us how to work with people. And
Right.
because
Balance.
I sucked at that. I don't know about you, but yeah. So you like actually had friends in the band and stuff, and was actually kind of connected, because I know band people kind of stuck together.
Well, I wasn't really I knew a lot of the people in the band, but I wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
say that I was I would come across maybe as being like a band person. There's
Right.
this
I get
stereotype of
you.
like the band geek and all of that. But
Yeah.
I didn't have that perception. I was really open to everybody. I was one
Right.
of those people that would talk to anybody. I knew everybody. It didn't matter what race it was. Everyone
Yeah.
seemed to like me. I mean,
I
I
totally
did
relate
get
with you with
picked
that.
on a little bit here and there, but it wasn't anything that I didn't ever compare myself to people that I remember. I didn't feel and we were poor growing up. My grandmother would buy stuff for us, but I didn't live a lavish lifestyle. But I don't ever remember comparing myself to anyone's clothes or wishing
You
I
didn't do
was
that?
a part of a certain group. So that's another realm. I feel like I got really protected in this bubble that I
You know
was.
what I would say that you're talking about? I think that you did a lot of work in other lives, is what I would
Right.
think.
I
Like
seem to.
you to not be in that bubble of ego like everybody else,
Right.
or be protected from that energy, because you're just like, I'm smarter than that in this lifetime. Like, I don't need to be involved in that. That's kind of like
When I look back, I see now that I think that my consciousness was way far beyond the realm that I was engaging in.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's a huge part of it.
Did you think that you were, this is a feeling I always had as a kid. I always just thought I was smarter than my parents, and not in an egotistical way, in a way where like I could tell you logic here and this one. Did you feel like you, like, when your parents would do stuff, you'd kind of like, come on, man, you can't pull this one on me?
Definitely. I
Yeah.
could see through all of it. And
Right.
even and as I got older, even with my siblings, when I felt like I was in a motherly role in some way, like nurturing my
Yes.
siblings and,
Yeah, I
and,
was
and that
were you the
sort of
oldest?
thing. I am the oldest, yeah.
I'm the oldest too of my whole
Yeah.
five. There's five of us, and I'm the oldest. How many How many brothers and sisters you got?
Well, there were four of us growing up together, and then my mom had another son much later. And so there were four of us growing up. There's five from my mom, and then I had two siblings that my dad had with my stepmom at the time. So there's a bunch of us, and I have step
That's so
siblings
cool.
too. So
Do you
yeah, I
speak
haven't
to them
been
all?
connected with them in a long time. So
You haven't? Is that what you
I
said?
had not been. I haven't seen any of them in 10 years.
Okay.
And just at the end of last year, my mom started talking. She started coming around a little bit. My sister even reached out. And what's so amazing is that my youngest brother, Jacob, who's 21 years old, he was born when I was already moved out of the house. We don't really know each other. We started messaging last year, and he's a starseed. He's so open. He is speaking the knowledge that I'm speaking now that I was not speaking
Isn't
at
it
that
trippy?
age. And so it's been the most beautiful thing for me to reconnect in my family through him.
Right.
And so we're nurturing that relationship. And he's always like, Lori, you have words for the things that I'm seeing and feeling. And he experiences a lot of negativity, he says, from the people in our family because they don't understand his ways of modality, right? Like when you're the black sheep or the colorful sheep in the family,
Oh yeah.
we oftentimes get discriminated against.
Oh yeah.
And that's what he's going through. So we nurture that aspect of him a lot. But so that has been a really beautiful thing for me
That's
since the end
cool.
of last year. Isn't it so awesome? It's like
Yes, I had
so
the same
one of
experience
at
with my
least one
cousin.
of us in the family came through with the divine light with that crystalline DNA like right away. So I love that.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I had the same experience with my cousin. Like he just began having experiences like 2 years ago and came around to me. He's my blood cousin. He thought it was absolutely insane. He was one of the ones that was like, Bryant is mental, like, and he had his experiences and was like, dude, can't believe you're not crazy. It's been fun. Um, so I want to know about, because I don't know about you, but I went hard and I was a partier and I was fucking crazy in this
Me
dimension.
too.
Like, I was actually, me and my buddy came by yesterday. He was actually still in that place, like, still lives there in that dimension. I can't believe I invited him over, but he's manic and he's awakening. So, which is trippy, by the way. Another dude awakening. But,
Right.
anyways, so when I look back on our old shit, there was this fun to it, even though it was like insane and there was actually some part of me that enjoyed it, I guess. So like what started your kind of like, I wouldn't say your drug run, but if you even did that, I know you fucked around, you know what I mean, like I did.
Right. Oh
So like
yeah.
what started all that? When did you get into that shit?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I struggled for years with it. And growing up in an alcoholic home,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that was probably like part of the distortion I felt the most. And then I moved out. I told you when I was 16.
Right.
And then I went through a really bad breakup with like the love of my life. It was a real love, even though we were young. And that's when I went into a deep depression and I started partying. And it just took off from there. The drinking, and I went in and out of drug use. I had some patches where I was clean, but it got real ugly. But I always was responsible for the most part. I always had a job, I always took care of myself, even though I was partying like a crazy person. And it's
Mm-hmm.
funny because I was just talking about this a couple days ago that even though I was not feeling like I was right on this planet, I was using alcohol and having all these drinkers remorse and just all the drugs. I always had a sense of humor about myself, and I was always able to tap into that light because people loved me. Like
Right.
even when I was running game in the streets in the drug world, like the
That's
big
what
guy.
I was saying a minute ago. Is like there's a part of us that like somehow creates an alchemy of it and makes
Right.
it amazing.
Yes.
Like even though I was an absolute, Xanax pill popping crazy, just out there, I still somehow made fun of it and had some kind of like lightheartedness to me, and people, like you said, liked me and enjoyed me and stuff. You said something that was interesting, and I want to kind of call this out because I think this is like maybe something that happened to us. So you say you had a real love whenever you know, and it fell apart, right? I feel the same way when I was 19 or 20. About 18 to 20, I had this love, and it absolutely felt like hero love, like ooh. But can you not agree that it was the one that shut your heart chakra down to emotional availability to others? When you got hurt by this, did you open your heart chakra to other men and feel like this with other men after that? Because I did with women.
Well, I was the cause of the end of our relationship. I actually cheated with a former partner who was a lot older than me. Like something inside of me was like, I need to see if this person really is good for me or not. And the way that I did it was by sleeping with him. And I felt, and it was awful afterwards. He was a jerk. I felt so terrible. And I ended up sharing, I told my partner, we were living together. We met in high school, and it destroyed me. And it's a love that it won't ever change. And I still feel it so deeply within myself. And it opened me up to promiscuity. It opened me up to wanting love so much, but was just sharing myself with a bunch of different people and partying. And it just got really dark. After that, I took LSD for the first time, and I had a really bad trip, and that really messed me up. So I do see that powerful love connection spiraled me out into so much dysfunction. And obviously it was meant to be, or it wouldn't have happened. But it kept my heart open.
The same thing as with Strippy. Like whenever me and her split, it was my dysfunction spiral. I even took mushrooms. That was the worst trip of my life. I thought I lost my mind and was insane. I never, I didn't think I was coming back from that. I even drove to her house, and tried to talk to her. It was like, it's crazy to watch somebody else's life and it'd be like similar, like the whole way up. You know what I mean? As you're right. What was your work? What did you do for jobs when you were growing up?
I started off I worked in food and beverage for 20 years. Before I moved out when I was 16, I got a job at a Mexican restaurant. I worked for them for 8 years. I learned Spanish. I always have had a really strong drive for business and work. So for years and years and years, I worked 6 days a week, double shifts. Like I was just a machine. And I worked my way up in the restaurant industry very, very fast. With less than 10 years, I was managing 5 restaurants at one time with multiple staffs of people. So I got to see my intelligence through that world of chaos.
So you was like a district manager across or something like that? Like you was.
It was on a college campus, actually. I managed 5 restaurants on a college campus. Yeah, it's really one of the only few corporate jobs I've ever had. I've usually worked for mom and pop places, which is the best. And but I had a great mentor while I was there, and he taught me a lot about being a great leader, and he really helped me explore myself. And I was just talking about this today, that it's interesting that I'm such a powerhouse in business and manifesting that. But then as soon as I would clock out and step outside of the door, it was like my world was just a disaster, right? Yeah. It's like my masculine has been so strong so much of my life. And I know I excel beautifully in that because I'm able to shift out of my emotions in business and like to be empathetic, but to really be dialed in and I worked at great restaurants. I had great staffs, great management. I was really blessed. Another example, but we know what's in restaurants, a lot of drinking, a lot of drugs. So it kind of fed into my dysfunction that was outside of the doors of my job. Right. So, and then I got sober at the end of 2015 and I quit my career in the restaurant industry and I didn't know what I was going to do. And
how'd you get sober? Did you just get sober?
Yes, I tried. Well, I say it's divine intervention because with everything, I used to smoke cigarettes. I mean, just awful heroin, meth, the drinking, the pills, all of that stuff. And it just like when it was finally time for it to be over, one thing after another, just I would wake up and I was like, it's gone. And so
you didn't have to have nothing big happen to you for you to stop.
yes, I had something really big happen to me actually, and I don't
I
talk to
did.
a lot of people
That's
about
what
it.
made me quit. So
Right.
what happened?
Yeah. I don't really talk about this publicly too much, but I told you about it before. I got
Do you
involved
want to talk
with.
about that?
I'll skirt around.
You can
Okay.
dabble. All right,
I got involved with some people in the drug world, and because of my sunny disposition, I climbed to the top, and so I was around the big dogs, and they got involved with something that was really awful, and I got pulled into it. And so that was my rock bottom. I didn't do anything criminally in the aspect of what they were being charged with, but the U.S. Marshals knocked on my door, and that is when I went through this really massive transformation. And one of the marshals that I ended up having, not an intimate relationship, but I ended up getting to know, well, he would always tell me, it's like, Lori, you're different. You're different from most of the people that we deal with. He was like, this is not your world. I don't know what's happened to you to get you here. So he was really instrumental in my life. And he was really a huge drive in my sobriety because in a way I wanted to make him proud because he saw me. He didn't classify me as a druggie and all of that, you know. So I was able to, after several months of that involvement, I moved away 3 hours to the beach, and that's where I started my healing process. Because like I would sleep with a gun under my pillow because I was so afraid, and the PTSD from that was on a level like I still deal with it sometimes, you know, like I still do. And so
It's crazy.
That was the rock bottom part for me because it got really real really fast. And
so it was like rock bottom for you, what switched you up, made you want to change big time?
Yes, I knew that I had to get out. I had to leave all of that behind. And I was still using, I relapsed once. I got sober for a month and a half. And during that month and a half, I started feeling my activations come on. Started using again. I used for another month. And then something in my mind kept saying, do you remember what that was? Like what you were feeling? That's what you want. And I was like, I don't know what that was, but I want to get back to that. And boom, a month later, I was done and I haven't looked back.
What year was this?
Huh?
What year was this?
This was at the end of 2015.
Okay. So this is when you began having your spiritual awakening?
All of that rock bottom stuff happened in 2015, and then I got sober. And then at the beginning of 2016, that's when I started activating, and everything changed.
2016?
Yeah.
That's when I woke up too.
Lots of people. I started seeing the number codes in 2013, and I started monitoring them, even though I had no idea. It was right after I got back from India, and it was when I went through the 3 darkest years of my life. And so it's interesting how it all plays out, but it put me on the path of where I am now. So I know that I had to learn the deepest empathy and compassion and understanding for humankind that I could through my own trauma. And that's exactly what it's taught me. Because when you're shooting needles in your arm and you got U.S. Marshals knocking on your door, it shakes up the consciousness. Thankfully for me, that was catapulted me into my awakening. So I'm grateful for the situation. It would be awesome if it didn't have to happen. But, you know, it is what it is. And so I'm an alchemist. So I make the best out of everything.
I think it's crazy that, so since we're source, you know, and you know that we're navigating this from the higher dimensions, just our higher dimensional self is navigating this, like, I think it's interesting how it kind of like does things to it. But like for instance, one time I was on my way to a Kiss concert and I got pulled over with a bag of chronic, and I was in jail only for like 2 hours, and I still made it to my Kiss concert just without weed, which revealed how attached I was to it. Right. And how pissed I was that I didn't have it, and different situations like that. And it's just trippy how like source or how we do ourselves, you know what I mean?
Right.
How we because like I also my two friends kicked in my door and robbed me for a pound and like $600, and that's whenever I finally started doing spiritual work, because I was like, I can't keep hustling, can't do that no more.
I remember when that happened to you.
Yeah, it was terrible. And then what made me stop doing pills was I popped a Klonopin at like 11:11, and then the next day I had a dream about it 2 nights before going to jail. Told my mom about it. My mom freaked on me because she's like, "B, how'd you know you're going to?" But I hit a parked car, fell asleep at the wheel,
right?
And yeah, I never took a pill after that. Like 2017, I think, the last time I've been on that shit. But like, yeah, we're both like on the same ascension path. It's so cool. How old are you, by the way?
I'll be 43 this year.
That's so awesome.
Yes.
You look a lot younger.
I'm so glad that people still say that. I've always been told that my whole life, that I look younger than I am.
I'll tell you, and this, don't take this in any type of way, because my ex-wife would have took it in like the most wrong way. But I looked back at your pictures from whenever we started. Like, I was looking through pictures of yours because I posted one right when we got on here, and like, you have started to glow over the last year. Like, I've noticed this glow in you since your tattoo kind of came into alignment.
Right.
You got that word, and like, right. You've really started. I think we're all getting lighter. You know what I mean? Like, right. And I can feel it in you. Like, by the way, in the middle of this, I've told you this before personally, but like, thank you from us divine masculines, dude. You're doing your thing out here for us. Like, I've told you before that she to me embodies the best divine feminine energy that could be embodied on this planet. And like, what I mean by that is, with her flaws and how she works them and how she handles herself and how she moves and how she presents herself, is just like, and we appreciate you, dude. We really do.
I appreciate you. I mean, it's just a timeline I'm experiencing, right? It's like, I can say thank you, and that's wonderful, and I appreciate you sharing, but it's like, at the end of the day, we're all in the exact right place where we should be. And I love that people see that I can embody the masculine and feminine, and we really get up and heal our DNA and really start to self-actualize, because that's where we activate the channels in our body. And I have to say, B, like, my glow or the light that I have now is because I have been doing so much detoxing. And from all the years of drug abuse, alcohol abuse, eating bad food and all of that, and then I started channeling. When they activated me in my ascension process, my nervous system, they turned me on so fast that my body took a nosedive before I was able to get recalibrated. So I looked gaunt and just, I mean, it was definitely a rough ride waking up. And I immediately started going through detox, and I've healed my gut in so many ways, and that changes everything. And so that's a huge part of what my growth has been. It's not just recognizing myself and going through this galactic activation, but it's also nurturing my body.
Yeah, for me, it's been so physical. Like, working on all the physical aspects of me, because then we'll align the mental. But did you have any manic energy, or how'd your awakening happen? How'd you start to, like, I know you've had your extraterrestrial contact. I want to talk about that later. But like, what started your, spiritual, we'll call it a spiritual experience. What's your first spiritual experience that was like science fiction to you? And you were like, what?
Okay. Yeah.
What was that?
That was at the beginning, in the first quarter of the year of 2016. And it was probably around like March or something like that. I'd been sober for a few months, and I started feeling all of these feelings in my body, and like these bubbles of consciousness just started taking place. And I was seeing myself and children and the people around me in this totally different light. And I remember my best friend, Michael, at the time, I would just sit on my bed and cry. And I would say, I don't know what's happening to me. And I was getting like all these downloads of Jesus and Buddha and the Hindu deities, Ganesh. And I remember feeling so Christ-like. It was so beautiful.
You hit ninth dimension shit.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I call it, bro. Like, because I had the same experience, similar. Like, I was just like, for 3 days, I felt like I was just, like, I could think of something and it would be there. Like, it was so
stuff
crazy.
like that, the manifestation portal. But then so right after that, I quit my job. I got rid of almost everything that I owned, and I went on this crazy. So I had this download that I wanted to leave the country. I wanted to go somewhere and do humanitarian work. I just
Is
needed
this
to
how
get
you ended up in
away.
Hawaii?
Well, Hawaii came later, but
Okay,
so
sorry, I'm moving too
me
far
and
ahead.
my
I've
friend
always wondered
Michael.
that. I just wondered how you ended up in Hawaii. I want to get there. We'll get there eventually. Go ahead. Sorry.
So me and my friend Michael, we borrowed his grandmother's car, and we went on this 5-month tour around the United States. It was crazy. We were visiting people from Facebook, and that's when all the ET stuff started coming in. Crazy experiences with that. And then so we were in a car for 2.5 months, and then I backpacked and hitchhiked around the country for another 2.5 months. And that was crazy. I chose
Where'd
to be
you backpack
homeless.
at? I want to know.
Well,
Like,
you're
where'd you backpack around
staticky
the
a little
country?
bit to me. I can't hardly.
Hold on, let me turn this off. All right. Where did you backpack at?
Well, what do I mean about backpacking?
No, where did you go? Like, where did you backpack in the country?
We went to we traveled to almost every state. And when I was walking, I was up in Massachusetts and ended up leaving from there, making my way to Kentucky to pick up somebody from Facebook who wanted to travel with me. And from Kentucky, we went down into Louisiana and backtracked over to Florida. And as we were living in a tent, totally renegading it, had no money, never asked for a dime, and people would always give us $40 because I had my dog with me. People were like, they wanted to know what we were doing. They were curious, and I would always tell them we're out spreading love and light. That's what I would tell everybody, and it was just phenomenal. And then what's so crazy is when we were in Florida, we were walking down the highway, and my phone, I was just getting tired because all I had was a backpack. And so we got a buggy from a store, and I was like, dude, let's just like push our bags. I just can't do it anymore. So we're pushing along down the highway, and then I see Tony Carroll. He's a friend of mine from Facebook who was waking up, and he was standing right there in the front yard. And I was like, oh my God, there's Tony Carroll. So I go walking back over there, and I was like, Tony. He's like, what? It was the most cosmic thing ever. So they invited us to go back to a farm that was like 2 hours away. And I ended up living on that farm for 7 months. And it was the most spectacular thing. That we built a room for me in the barn, and I did construction work and farming and all kinds of things. And so I was able to get rooted right there. And the guy he was an 86-year-old Baptist preacher, and he just welcomed me in. He used to call me an enigma. He would never ask me about my spiritual practices, but he would always call me an enigma. And it was a really beautiful time. So I got activated to go on this shamanic journey so that I never wanted to backpack across anything before. So the fact that I was doing this was way outside of my norm, but it
taught me. So that was different for you.
Right. So, it was completely different. But I got past fear. I learned to trust. I saw the power of manifestation. So much magic happened during that trip. The people that picked us up, people that dropped us off, the people that would just hand us money and water bottles out their window. And just like, I got to see the love that we have as humans on this planet, just blessing after blessing after blessing. So it restored my faith in humanity. And then after that, everything just changed. That's when I started channeling, which that changed my life in a very drastic way. I haven't ever been the same since. So it's like really interesting to see how I was guided on this like extraterrestrial journey, because that's exactly what happened. The contact was made. And that's when my pineal gland was activated. What's that?
What was your first channel? Do you remember? Like first moment you started kind of bringing channeling in?
Oh, yeah. I was in Luzerne, Iowa. Some people from Facebook had flown me from the farm in Florida to go visit Heather Weeks, who is my 717. She's my twin flame incarnated in female. And we know this, and we both she has kids and she has her own life, but we upgraded really fast together. And we knew somewhere in the multidimensional space that we are very tight. And so I went to her house. We had a little gathering with people from Facebook. The second night I was there, everyone left the house but me and this one girl that was there. And which I thought was really interesting. And I felt the pull to go outside. And so we went outside and stood on top of this little hill. And then I looked up and there was this perfectly round cloud with a hole punctured out at the center of it, like a spaceship that was cloaked. And my arms went up immediately and I turned around like this and then it started spinning. And so I was standing underneath it and it was so close to me that I was like jumping up because I was so close to touching it. And the girl that was with me, she was like, Lori, I can't stand up. And I guess she was feeling like the turbulence from it, which I wasn't. So I was like, just lay on the ground, lay on the ground. It was so weird. And then a few minutes later, we went back in the house and laid down on the bed. And she got the worst stomach pain she'd ever felt. And I got the worst pain I'd ever felt over my right brain. And I remember holding my head and I was just bent over and I was like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden I felt this huge pop happen and my body started convulsing and convulsing and convulsing and convulsing. And she jumped up and was looking at me and I was like, what's happening to me? You know? So I started convulsing and we heard upstairs that they got back to the house. So she ran up there and got Heather. Heather came back downstairs and she was just like, oh my God. And I was just looking at her and she put her hand on my leg and just held space with me. And then that's when I had this massive vision of me standing like on a stage with like a chief. It was very native. It felt very Native American. And there was like a crowd of people in front of me and I was being awarded my feathers. And I was doing these movements like this, even though it wasn't like I was having the vision, but in the reality, and I was doing this. And then I started like, it was all like Native American chanting. I got up and I was like, then all of a sudden something changed. And I started dancing these different dances through the timeline, starting back in like the 1920s. So it was like I was going through this time portal and dances I'd never done before, like swing dancing and jive and hip hop and just all these different things. And everyone was just like, oh my God, like what is happening? And so, and the next day I actually have some video footage that we shot of what it looked like because it was different. My arms started moving around and it was so uncontrollable. And so I stayed a month there. I knew I could not go back to Florida. I let Tony know I was not going to be returning. And I knew that I had to stay there and integrate. And then a month later, I flew to California where I ended up staying for 7 months and integrating my avatar. And so that day changed everything. And it was the wildest experience of my life, and I can't even believe it happened to me. So something in my brain turned on that put me in these other dimensions in a way that like a movie could be made out of this, my story. It's so insane. I can't even believe it. And so while I was living in San Francisco, one day I was riding the bus and I was talking to someone and my hand kept throwing up this mudra. And I was like, whoa, like while I was talking, I just couldn't believe it. And then that started to develop into this and different mudras. And then I started channeling the collective. I was opening up all these portals and just all this crazy stuff. And then this was in June when I moved to San Francisco. And then 12/20. Huh?
What year was this?
This was 2017.
Okay, cool.
And then in 12/20, on the night of 12/20, the night before the 12/21 portal, I sat up in bed and I was sitting next to the guy and I started channeling over his body. And I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? I didn't know that I could channel over people. And I was channeling over his heart and his third eye. So then he like fell asleep while I was doing it, which I couldn't even believe because it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen, right? and then I started channeling on myself and the craziest things were happening during that. So then I fell asleep and the next morning when we woke up, I was like, oh my God, go look in the mirror. And he's like, what? So he jumps up and goes, looks in the mirror and he has a huge boil over his third eye and his heart chakra, where I pulled out plugs. And so he was pretty tripped out by that. It was really crazy what I was going through. So he was a little freaked out by that. So I ended up transitioning to a different place after that. But it was like wackadoodle, like on a level that's, I felt like I should have been in a straitjacket sometimes because it was so nuts, So I've had some experiences that have taught me about the dynamics of what the body actually can do, and the different dimensions that we can tap into, and the abilities that the body can actually perform. So since then, I've been integrating all kinds of new things, lots of different abilities have activated, and the contact has not stopped with the ETs. So it's been an incredible.
I remember when I first seen you. I remember you might actually be able to tell me when we first, because I remember the first time I seen you, and you were at a Mayan or some kind of temple channeling light language somewhere. I don't know where. It was like,
right. Yes. So that was at the beginning of 2019.
So
and I went to Mexico. I got invited to go down there, and I went to a structural integration school where I learned Rolfing body work to do tissue work, which also activates the Kundalini, by the way. And down there, that's when we went to the ancient temples, and I was channeling there. So yeah, that was like March, April of 2019.
Right. That was the first activation I ever received from you. I remember thinking then, like, who is this crazy fucking goddess? Like, what the fuck is she doing? Like I had no idea what you were doing, but I knew it was absolutely divine. I can't explain that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had not experienced light language in that form yet. I've only heard people talk it, not use their hands and do mudras and do that. I've always I like tell people, I'm like, there's healers on this planet like me who do Reiki, and my shit's simple. I just sit there and fucking get the fuck out of the way. But you're over here and you have, like, I can feel, if you don't mind me telling you a story real quick, just like 2 weeks ago, I did a session on Krista, my roommate, and I did exactly what you're talking about. Like, I turned the song on Dax Alcohol, and I played it over and over again. This is my favorite song right now. And I just sat there and was like, bringing in energy and just like doing all kinds of hand movements and just sprinkling fucking light on her all over her vessel. And like, she was like, dude, I was feeling whoosh of energy coming in my body. I was like, dude, I've never done that before. So that was a whole nother level of healing. But you definitely have, it's so cool because I've been on TikTok, I'm on all kinds of shit, right? And I don't see people doing your unique style of epic ass healing. I think your friend, who's your friend that you're doing healing work with?
Same.
Doesn't she kind of like you a little bit? Isn't she?
She's the only one that I've been connected with so far that is similar to me. We definitely have different things, like my mudras are like the way I move and stuff like that is definitely different. But she's a medical intuitive just like me. We scan the body and immediately began hearing. I'm clairaudient, so I get verbal messages all day, every day about everything. And so we diagnose what's going on in the body. We help heal. We clear energy. I speak light language. I'm a medium. There's just all kinds of things.
Sessions that you guys do?
My sessions?
Yeah, no, those sessions. Don't you guys do like group sessions sometimes?
Yes. Yeah.
How much are those?
Well, the first couple were free. The last one we charged a little bit just because it's so much time and space. We usually go for 4 hours. Yeah, so we got another one coming up. We haven't set the date for that yet, but it's probably going to be in April. And it's magnificent. We do it in Zoom, and we have so many people come into the room. And
you guys gotta check it. I watched your YouTube recently. I went back.
Yes, it's on YouTube too.
And it was phenomenal, the healing you guys were doing for people. And you guys, I just want your audience watching right now to check you out, to go to your. I even put at the bottom her to book a session with her. Do you have any set prices for anything of your sessions?
Yeah, my sessions are an hour long, and it's a one-on-one video, And I also, if someone doesn't want to get on video with me, I do recorded sessions also where they don't have to be in the video with me, and then I send them a link to view it. 120 is my session, and it's full on everything. But I do want to offer a special B to everyone that's watching, just because you asked me to come on. And for $99, I'll do a special for anyone that wants to connect with me. And my email address is there. And also, if you want to check out the healing events that I've done and some of my other channel, my YouTube channel is my name, Lori Ivey. And it doesn't have my face on there. It's like a blue sacred geometry image. So you can check me out on there also. Yeah.
Yeah. I want you guys to know. So her healing, she said it's an hour long. And for, I don't know, a lot of people on this live, they may be new to the spiritual practice. I don't know where they're at in their, in their ascension, but to know that, so I charge, 88 for my sessions. I have a sessions 120 also. To pay that isn't shit for what she's going to do for you. What I'm trying to say, I know you know what you're doing, and I know you know your gifts. And what I'm saying is, whenever you pay that price, Source sees you investing in yourself and says, we are going to give you someone and align you with someone who's going to give you that type of energy exchange back. And she absolutely, man, I've seen her do sessions online, just free sessions that fucking rock my world, dude. I'll be sitting there and I'll feel my whole solar plexus boom, when you're working on, and you do that shit for free. And I'm like, your sessions are dope. So I just want to commend you for your sessions being amazing, because I know how you do them. And please hit her up for them. She deserves to have clients. She deserves to gain clients from this exposure. All kinds of good shit needs to come for you from what you're putting out, man.
Right. And I just want to say really quick too, that I do work with people's budgets. So I feel like if someone comes to me for something, that money is just a part of the exchange, but I will open up, I'm not a stickler about it, because I understand that healing is healing, and there's all kinds of different ways to exchange money. I'm open to trading, not necessarily energy work from someone else, but I'm open to trading and working with people's budgets and doing payments and all kinds of things. So I just want to let people know that I'm very open, and I understand the spectrum of money on this planet. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah. One of your clients down here, Sherry Ann Harrison, she said my session was amazing with Zane, Spirit, and Lori. It was so amazing, totally worth it. So grateful.
It was so good. She was in our last session, and it was so awesome. We liberate, because there's so many channeled messages that come in about the future and what's going on and how to resolve things. And I activate people's dormant abilities too. So a lot of people speak light language after working with me. Their hands start moving, so they start healing themselves. It's so mind blowing what we're capable of doing in this body. And that's part of what I do. It's yes, I love to connect with people and help people heal. I deal with chronic issues with people they've had their whole lives, all kinds of things. I work with children. So I know that there's a full spectrum of what's going on, but I empower other people and show other people how they can heal themselves. It's I love connecting with you in session, but we can hang out in another way if you don't need me anymore. And that's what's so beautiful, right? It's we don't want to keep someone repeating themselves. We want to empower them so that they're in this new spectrum of themselves. And it's beautiful.
I don't know about you, but whenever I guess I began this really going hard in 2018, and people can pedestal you and kind of look to you as you're this awesome healer, but then you fuck up and then now you're not pedestaled no more. But what I'm getting at is I love to present myself in a way like you said, if we aren't on the healing shit, I can be there for you as a friend too, and we can vibe, and I am a human being just like you, and we're just humans, it's nice to be humbled and have people that don't come at you like that all the time. You know what I mean, though?
Right. Well, a lot of
Um,
people were like, "Oh, there's the human in you." I'm like, "Yes,
exactly. I
I'm
can't.
still
That's the
human.
shit I
I
can't
still
stand
go
about
through
being
all the
human.
things, and I'm still learning how to be a better person, to be more in
Right.
compassion and love." Because there's, we most of us experience quite a bit of trauma, and it comes through in so many different ways. And so it's like,
Yeah.
we have to remember that while someone may seem like their consciousness is just so exalted and they're in this really amazing place of channeling and healing, that we're still dealing with the human stuff because we're in
Yeah.
the collective web.
Right.
We're telepathic beings. So the
Yeah.
doubt and the shame and the lack
Yep.
mentality that we experience every day, whether it's we experience it or we see other people experience it, that reminder's always there.
Yeah.
And that's going to trigger different things in us at different times. And
Yeah.
to expect one person to be perfect all the time is just a
Right.
facade. And
Right.
I believe the perfection comes in through self-realization. Like, that's
Yeah.
where I'm perfect. That's where I
Yeah.
find my perfection, is
Yeah.
recognizing myself.
I mean,
And
I think what the coolest thing, like me and you, we can look back on our history. I've been, how many times have you triggered me with dumb shit? And I've, like I unfriended you and blocked. I don't know what the hell we had going on at one point, but
yes,
look at us, and like
right,
I will say this, like I could cry about it because I'd say that this is what true fucking healing is. We
right,
are true people. Like I don't just fucking talk this shit. I walk this shit, and you see it.
right,
I see it through you and me because me and you are able to work through. So many times, me and you have little communication issues where you'd be like, "Dude, I'm not competing with you right now. What's going on?" And you would see that I would be having an inner child reaction coming up, or
right,
like my big sister competing, and shit like that. But
yes,
like, we worked that shit like bosses, and
right,
we'd take time away from each other when we needed,
yes,
and we would come back to each other. But I would say that me and you are in a really beautiful place now. Like I
yes,
feel like we've really worked that shit, and
right,
what I'm getting at is that's I think that's the coolest part about this ascension is the people
yes,
like you that I run through, that are my friends, and then we get that challenge. Are you really friends? Are you going to respect each other? Are you going to, and like, even though me and you had that one disagreement, I think it was Black Lives All Lives Matter, and I was fucking all being an asshole about it, and that was what's cool. You know what's cool about that, Lori? That was the first time and the thing that I needed to pop me into full neutrality to any situation delivered
right,
by the government. I
right,
didn't know prior that they were getting us to choose sides. I
right,
had no clue. I was standing strong over here, and you weren't really. You were just giving me your opinion, and your opinion was different than mine. So I freaked on you, and I seen right then. I was like, oh my god, they just really got good at separating me from my friend who I actually love dearly, and I don't know why I acted the way I acted. And
right.
then I never did that no more. Like that was it, bro. And that was cool. That was actually good. Thank you for being a crazy stepping stone for my life.
Well, that's the thing, like, and it's interesting because some people, like, in my life, I've had a very strong ability to just cut people off. And so, I mean, donezo in a second, not even
It's
thinking
not
about
hard at all no more. I feel
it. Right.
bad about it too,
And
though,
so,
sometimes.
what I've been working through over the last several years is to learn how to really hold space, because I know my own mind and dysfunction. And when we're in a place of neutrality, androgyny, when we're able to really understand ourselves, it creates the space for us to really understand other people. And when we trigger each other, like you and I, we know that we have a lot of similarities in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things, and our path has
Yeah.
been the same. So our connection is really unique. And so I knew that you were just going off on one of your tangents.
Right.
And when you wanted to come back around, you
Yeah.
would, and you
Yeah.
did. And see, and that's the beautiful thing. It's like, if someone says something to me or does something to me, I'm like, okay, they're obviously in their own little space, because I know I do it too. And what I've needed the most is for other people to hold space for me and not judge me just because I'm going through something. And
Exactly.
that's a rarity, to find
Yeah.
some people who can
Yeah.
actually stand by and just like give space and allow and not take it on personally. And that's been a lot of work for me. Like, a lot. I still go through times where this planet just triggers me to no end, with the hypocrisy that we have to experience as humans. And so for me, the things I take on personally have evolved a lot from it being just my own situation. And now it's more on a collective vibe. But I also understand that this is all happening the way it's supposed to. So while everything looks insane, I know that there's a purpose. So it allows me to go back into androgyny, right, in this neutral state where I don't have to identify or pick sides or any of that stuff, because as a whole, we're all going through it, whether I'm experiencing in that moment or you're experiencing in that moment, or we're experiencing it together, right? And I think that's where we really get to learn the greatest aspects of compassion for humanity, and not just talking about it.
Right. Yeah. I totally.
Because a lot of people will say they can hold space for you all day, but at the end of the day,
well, see, that's
that
been
little circle is pretty small.
That's been my biggest. So I've worked through a lot of my. This is my healing. How my healing goes is so weird. I will have an ego, like a shadow that I act out on that I don't see. I'll heal it. I'll learn to love it. But then my friend, my roommate usually, because she's such a mirror to me, will do the exact same thing and be like, can you hold space for me now? You know, like in the same energy that you were in. And like, that has been my only lessons that I've been having for the last few years is holding space for my friend who's been sad a lot, and going through shit all the time. And I have to learn how to not fix as a masculine. I can't, and that's one of the harder ones, is to sit there with people's uncomfort and, not feel like you're, I don't know, it's a hard one. It's one of the big ones that we have to learn is to hold space for others and be there.
Right. Not trying to fix someone,
Yep.
not trying to project our ideas onto them and how we think they should be and all of that. And just really letting people, like, I've learned that if we give people the space to just do what they need to do and just say, hey, I love you. I see you're going through something. If you want to talk about it, I'm here for you. Instead of taking it on like it's personal or something. And I've done that so much in this life, so much. And it's just been in the last year that that dial has really turned up for me, because like I was telling my partner, like, listen, I got a lot going on in here, and some days I'm really high, most of the time, but then I go into this null place where I'm not emotional. Nothing's wrong. I just really don't want to talk. I'm in my own space. And so I've had to tell him hey, let me be me. Don't take me on. I can see your mood changing because my mood is shifted. And so we've been able to have that dialogue really well, where it's like we check in, we're like, you okay? And then that gives us the space to say, I'm in a little whatever right now. And it's so much better. I see that I've wasted so much energy on trying to fix or help situations when all I had to do was hold space. It's like so simple.
Yeah, I've caused so many arguments with my roommate where she's just like, dude, shut the fuck up and just be there for me. I'm like, oh. Yeah. Right. That's what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? Somebody asked how many kids you got. Do you have any kids?
0 kids. In this lifetime, I came here not to procreate. I came here to elevate. So
I think that's dope, bro.
That's something that goes through my mind a lot. And it's interesting because I don't remember a lot when I was younger, like from my early teenage years to when I was born. There's only a couple handfuls of memories, but I don't ever remember feeling the drive to want to have children. And then I was married twice, and my second husband was a radiologist, a doctor. He was a lot older than me, and I wasn't working. He didn't want me to work, so I was like staying at home for the first time and not active in my normal routine. And so there was a void there, and I wanted to fill the void with a child. So during that time, we went through very extreme measures to get pregnant. And it didn't work out. And I'm so thankful because after the 3rd cycle of IVF, it wasn't me. He had his vasectomy reversed for us. His swimmers didn't come back on a line correctly. So I went from never trying to have a child to doing 3 rounds of in vitro fertilization, 8 months, which I do not recommend. And that was one of the hardest years of my life that I don't really talk about much. But it taught me so much about my willpower and also the surrenderance, really tapping into myself and asking myself, am I doing this because I really want it? Or am I doing this to fill a void? And I knew that I was doing it to fill a void. So tons of hormones and tens of thousands of dollars later, I got divorced after about a year of that. And then that's when I moved to Texas and my whole life started to change in a different direction. I love children. Huh?
How long were you married?
I was married almost 6 years in that one. And we weren't leveling up together. I was ready to level up and he was stuck. And so I just knew it wasn't going to work. And he was a wonderful man and we had a great life together. I really was able to mature and level up in that relationship. So I owe so much to that experience.
You know,
and
it's really cool when you can tell somebody, I can tell you've done the inner work just by listening to you, because how you spoke about your parents, how you spoke about your exes, when you speak about these people, you're like, oh, they obviously put me through hella trauma, but I see why that had to happen, and I actually see why they did what they did, and I don't have any anger for them anymore, don't want it around me maybe, but, that's fucking dope, man. I can see that you fucking work. It's cool because I think people like me and you who have been at this for as long as we have, since the 2016 ACE activations, I think we're going to be coming into some shit in the next 2 years. Like, I think our fruitions or, my music's going to start taking off. You're going to start taking off with everything you're doing.
I hear it so much. Like my channel tells me so much, especially in the last month, that so much is coming. It's coming. It's coming. And I constantly feel like I'm waiting and waiting. So this whole experience has definitely taught me a lot of patience, and so much has come to fruition. So
yeah,
and even
her
for my
divine
clients,
channel, guys, dude, don't mean to interrupt you, but her divine channel, dude, is like, wherever it is, is so dope because one day she's sitting there talking to me. She said, "Man, you're about to start working in the music industry or something." I just heard she just heard something come in, and a day later, I'm skateboarding on the street and meet a dude who works for a label who shot my first video this week. Like, you called it, man. Like, she knows her shit, y'all. She hears, when she hears something coming in, she just says it right away. And I love that you like, oh, I hear something coming in my channel. I just said this. I'm like, that is the dopest shit ever that you really have that. Yeah, that connection. I remember you told me one time that it was, overwhelming how many spirits you could hear in your mind and you didn't know how to turn it off, and it almost got to be like, did you end up obviously managing that and learning how to tweak that, get into that frequency or get out of it, I guess, so to say?
Well, see, I just sigh because the clairaudience aspect is probably been the most challenging. Because it's no longer my thinking space. It's so much more clouded, not clouded in a way where it's cloudy because it's very clear, but there's just a lot more information, a lot more conversation. Like for a year and a half, I was only listening. And then when you said that you saw me for the first time in 2019 when I was in Mexico, that's when they started talking to me and calling me by name and having conversations with me. And it's challenging sometimes, even still. Like I don't know how to turn it off at will. I demand and get frustrated and show love, and just I go through all of the emotions with it too. But and when the radio receiver is activated to such a high frequency, I mean, I hear things that are going on in the world, underground, with people in my life. I mean, just it's a full spectrum. And what's really interesting about it too is when I step into a session with someone, that totally shifts. It becomes even more clearer and it feels different. It sounds different. I hardly ever have any of the other voices step in and try to
distract. Like a portal opens for you to just be
right. It's totally different. There's been a couple times where I've had to say, we're focusing on so-and-so right now. Please give me the space. And then
Right.
boom, I just get right back into it. But when I'm by myself, that does not always happen. I can do this little brain shifty thing where I can cut off a dialogue in like mid-sentence and things like that, but they'll still keep talking. So sometimes I can get it to quiet down, but it's something that is desensitizing my body, my solar plexus. I'm way less triggered because I hear things that are very triggering sometimes. And it's really wild. I definitely feel like I experience psychic attacks. And that's why I detox and I cleanse the toxicity as much as I can and parasites out of my body. And I've done a lot of work with that. I help a lot of my clients with that. So that's still something like it's gotten a lot more manageable. It's not as like it. Sometimes I would stand frozen in the bathroom and hold on to the sink and just go down these like tunnels of hearing stuff. And then I come back out and I'm just so triggered in my body. And that was, a couple of years ago, but it's not like that now. But I will watch Netflix or Hulu or something because it allows me to step outside of having to be in my own space. And what's interesting too is that since it's all happened, and even though I hear so much, I spend the majority of my day in silence, like not even listening to music. I don't turn on the TV. So I'm in that space of listening a lot. And I really enjoy it, to be honest. Like as much as it triggers me, I love it so much because they have a sense of humor and they play music for me. And so it's this really interesting, evolving relationship. And but it's on such a spiritual level. It's on such a galactic level that I can't even describe. Like,
you saying
unbelievable.
You saying that, like, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I'm shitty. Sorry. My phone fell. You saying spirit has a sense of humor? They do.
Yes.
Beyond my like I have to share a quick story because it's the funniest shit that ever happened to me, and then I'll move on. It won't be long. So one time, me and a friend of mine were thinking about having casual sex, and we didn't know what to do. Like, we were like, should we do this or not? And spirit, literally, we were watching a movie. It's called Without a Paddle. And I'm like, should we flip a coin? What should we do? And then on the fucking TV, the song, R. Kelly's song, he goes, my mind's telling me no, but my body's telling me yes. You know, baby, I don't want to hurt nobody, but there's something that I must confess.
Yeah.
I don't see nothing wrong with a little bump and grind. And I was like,
right.
Oh my God, did you really just do that, spirit?
Yeah.
I was like, that was clearly you, motherfuckers. I cannot believe you just did that shit. I was like, that is the weirdest shit. Like, yeah, they really have a sense of humor. My chief told me that one time. Before I forget, because I keep wanting to bring it back. You know, when you said your head popped a while back.
What is it?
You said you had the pain and then your head popped.
Right.
You know, a medicine man that I work with, Lakota medicine man, told me that when that happens to you, that's your left and right hemisphere popping together and becoming a unit as one. I didn't know that shit because I had the same thing happen where I had this massive pain in my right hemisphere, and then all of a sudden I could feel this big pop in my head, and I didn't know what was happening to me. And that shit's crazy. Like,
it is crazy.
Have you experienced Kundalini too, I assume?
Oh.
Shit's nuts.
The Kundalini Awakening is the most fascinating part of it because that's the energy centers of the body coming on. So now the DNA activation is taking place and the organs are upgrading because it's the energy of the organs, which I feel are portals. And so when we feel the physical aspects of the Kundalini Awakening, and I activate Kundalini in people. And so I've been able to go through my Kundalini Awakening very, very intensely in the first few years. Like, I remember thinking, oh my God, is it going to be like this for the rest of my life?
I hated it.
Because it was so intense. Like, I loved it, but I did not feel like a human anymore. So it took me a while to integrate in. And since I've been on Maui, I'm in my third year here on Maui, and Maui has been the frequency, it's the sacral chakra. And it has I feel more human now than I did then, even though I will probably never, ever, ever, ever feel human again, if that makes sense.
I do remember you always, like, for about a year there, I noticed you just never related with being human. When you'd speak, you were like Lori's vessel, like, you know,
Right.
and you really were, I admired it in you. I was like, damn, she is up there, you know,
Right.
and she totally doesn't even fucking relate with her. She does relate with her human vessel,
Right.
because she's in it, but she doesn't she knows who she is galactically, like energetically, I can tell.
Right. And
I,
that can feel very crazy for
Oh, it
people.
does. I felt like
Yeah.
that from when I woke up in 2016. My crown chakra opened, and the Kundalini rose a couple times. I tried to force it one time with my ego, which was nuts. I was screaming, and I felt the Kundalini coming up, and I
Right.
rose it to my third eye and was like, no, stop. You know, I was like, this isn't supposed to happen. I can tell. Another time it rose to my sacral, and then I had pain in my body for like 2 weeks. And it was moving that energy out of me was the worst. I remember I cried to my mom every night, like, what's wrong with me? You know? But what was I getting at? The Kundalini energy that I've been working with is just always intense. It's like fire coming up my back. Like, is that what you experience?
I definitely have felt a lot of spine stuff, but mine is my third eye and my solar plexus are my two really activated ones. Like I feel my third eye move all the time. I feel my brain move all the time. My eyes started moving in 2017 and they have not stopped. Like you can't see it, but if you were up close to me, you could. And they move in figure eight motions, and I actually see it in gold in my mind's eye when it does that. Whenever I connect with someone in session, my eyes start to move. I can monitor the energy of the day that's coming in through the collective because my eyes move. So I can feel the shifts in the food that I eat. My eyes move, which is my brain moving, because behind the eye is the nerve for movement, and that connection makes it is in the midbrain where the pineal gland is.
Right.
So my brain is so activated all day, every day. And that was really hard to integrate too. Like the first month, I would just cry with my hands over my eyes, saying, God, can I just have like 1 hour of no movement? So it took me a while to integrate all of that. But now I'm used to it. Like in the last 2 years, the activations, the upgrades have definitely leveled out a little bit. All day, my eyes are moving, my brain's moving, I feel my chakras. There's a lot of energy. I'm hearing everything. My hands move on their own. So like I've said so many times, if I had like a video camera up in the corner of the room over the last 6 years, people would probably blow their minds at what we experienced.
Your life
and
review
so
is going to be cool.
yeah.
You know, when you
And
look back on your.
I think it's awesome because it gives people a greater insight to what we can actually do. And I think that it would really change humanity for the masses to be activated. And that's what's happening. We're having a mass awakening that's been taking place over the last several years. And so when I first started moving my hands and doing videos, there was like no one. I didn't see anyone that was doing it. And then as like a year or so went by, I was like, well, there's a person and there's a person. And they weren't doing
Isn't that cool?
per se. Yes. So I was like, okay, this is part of the activation. The first time I actually saw anyone do it, I was in San Francisco. My hands had just started moving and I was doing the collective channeling for a few months. And I sat down and turned on Netflix, and there was this show called The OA. And I remember watching it, and I saw them move their hands, and I just started bawling, crying. It just hit me so hard. I was like, oh my God, there's somebody doing what I'm doing, and it's on TV. And that was a premonition of letting us know that that was what was happening with humanity. And so it's really interesting to see how so many people are waking up. And I help guide a lot of people through their ascension process so that they understand what's going on with their Kundalini, because it, like a lot of people, some people, they end up getting committed, right, to like mental facilities. They get called schizophrenic and all of these things, and they get put on ADHD medication and, you know, Adderall, which is clinical meth, and just all of these things suppressing these abilities. And part of what I do is I recalibrate the nervous system. So I actually help people settle into that in their body so that they don't feel so out of control. And also, I just want to say, this is coming up for me too. I've worked with some children before, and I feel a deep calling to start working with people, children and grown people, but children that have the label of autistic, that aren't speaking and things like that. Like, I know I can recalibrate their nervous system. Maybe not everyone, but I feel like that's some of the work that I'm going to be doing. And I get downloads about, I'm going to be able to heal cancer in the body too. So I'm really excited to see how these next several years are going to progress, because I know that a lot of us in the collective are on another level now, and we're like the way showers into, we're bringing in the ancestral realms. And it's so beautiful to see so many people activate, and then so many children being born with the knowledge that we're upgrading to later in life. And that's one of the most beautiful signs that the system is changing, because of all of these 20-somethings and younger who have the knowledge.
Yeah, it's trippy. Like, it doesn't matter. It really is the Great Awakening, and you can see it.
Yes.
I can see it on my streets of my, I mean, I'm skateboarding down the street more than once now. One day I was skateboarding down the street, and a random drunk dude walks up to me, starts talking. Next thing you know, he's talking about how his twin flame did him wrong. And I'm like, are you talking about spirituality right now, bro? Like, what's happening? You know what I mean? Like, this is crazy.
It's a massive wave.
I've had it happen more than once now, you know. Like I said, I just randomly skateboarded into a dude who shot my video, like, and he's all waking up, like, we're all, and I even had a dude, my ex-wife's brother-in-law, or she's like, something like that. Last dude I thought would be awakening. You know what I mean? And I seen him out in the streets, and he's like, yeah, I'm getting my chakras aligned. And I'm like, the fuck did you just say to me? You know what I mean? Like, bro, I'm like, I even said to him, I'm like, do y'all not remember me talking to you guys about this 3 years ago? Like, and they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, were you really in that low of a frequency? You didn't even hear a word I said. Like, I literally told everything these people back then. And then whenever they came to me and told me they were having an awakening, they didn't remember anything that I spoke to them about. It's trippy. You know what I mean?
Right. The mind will pick up whatever is dialed in to their programming. They will completely ignore so many of the things that are spoken and just hang on to certain things. It's really interesting how the human mind works, isn't it?
Yeah, me and you even spoke about this before, how so I've been on this since really I started meeting people online in about 2018. And then I've seen about 10 people at least or more go like totally back to their old ways and like religion, and like, this isn't for me. I'm like, fuck this. And like, that's crazy that they Doreen Virtued it, you know what I mean? And like took off back towards, it's not for everybody. I guess they may wake up when later down the road, you know, but it's trippy that this is like that hard, you know what I mean, for us to, you know, we're all doing this alone is what's trippy, you know. I not alone, but it is unity, but you're alone every day. You're not with me on Facebook, you know. You only type to me like for 5 seconds, you know. You're doing this by yourself. And you said something about earlier about David, your man, your boyfriend. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, David.
Yeah,
David's awesome.
I know you met him about a year ago, right?
Yeah, we've been dating a little over a year. And
you mind if I show a picture to them of you guys?
Sure. Yeah. He's there we are. He's a physician of Chinese medicine, and he's an acupuncturist. And he used to own a massage school. He's a certified continuing education teacher, and he's practiced Tai Chi and martial arts for 30 years. So he's been going through his process of awakening for a long time. And so it was just so beautiful when we met. And I saw that this was like a reflection of where I am, right? Like I'm in a place to manifest someone like that and to do the work with, because neither one of us are in this place of perfection.
No,
And
I
we
love that
trigger
about
each
you
other's
too.
wounds. And the great thing is that we're both open to doing our own work while we nurture the third entity, which is the relationship. It's a trifecta. And he taught me that. He taught me a lot about the third entity, which is the relationship. And it made so much sense to me because I knew it was really important that we as individuals, we do our own work. And it's been great. Like we've had our ups and downs in the first year. And then now we're just in this beautiful new place of understanding with each other. It did not take us long to calibrate. And it's beautiful. We both are body workers, we're healers, we take care of each other, and we're having a lot of fun. And I'm so grateful that I was able to be in a space of being patient and doing my own healing, to be able to receive him at the time, because that's really what it was about. I've had a lot of trauma in relationships. I've had a lot of very short-term relationships. And finally, I met a partner who didn't want to run away, doesn't want to shut down when things get heated. And it's like he's been able to hold space for me because my MO has always been to just say, screw this, I'm out. And so it's just easier to move on. But I also know that those other people were not in the place of wanting to do the work with me, because it was constant. I would say, hey, I'm ready to level up. Like, let's get real. Let's talk about our issues so that we can heal that. And it just wasn't time. It just wasn't time. It just wasn't time. So now I have this beautiful partner, and we have developed so much compassion for each other to understand each other's things and to give each other the space. And that's the thing. This is the thing too. And this is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is we moved into together after a few months of dating. And there is a huge responsibility that comes with that, because it's like an arranged marriage. You meet someone, you spend time together, you decide to move in together without actually really learning how each other operates, how we talk about each other. And the number one thing is how we deal with conflict, because everything's good when it's good. But in conflict, that's where we destroy each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I've realized that you have to really be ready to really be dialed in if you're going to jump into a relationship so fast with someone. And so we've been able to work through that from the very beginning of the relationship. I told him, I was like, I'm in a place where I'm working on opening up my body. I'm in pain. That's my number one priority. I channel over myself. I sit for hours at a time and do body work on myself. That's my number one priority. My number two priority is to learn how to be compassionate in conflict, conscious conflict resolution. And so we have been working to figure out what that looks like. And we haven't always we've butted heads and haven't always been the most groundedness, because we're both very open, conscious people. And we do have trauma that we can only work through in a
I think we're
relationship.
supposed to, you know,
Right.
like
And so
it's
it's like
meant to be like that.
finally somebody who is doing their own work and that doesn't put me down. He
Yeah,
doesn't try to change me. And I'm not a regular human, you know, like I
right.
have like so many people have asked me, they're like, Lori, how's it dating for you? Because it's like I've ran several men off because of my multidimensional self. And I knew first and foremost, if somebody can't love me for who I am, it will never work, because I won't ever suppress myself for anyone on this planet ever again.
No, I know. I feel you on that.
Never, 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 not going to happen.
I actually just had this full moon. I'm bawling my eyes out about both my exes not wanting me, you know, rejecting me. And I could feel it in me, this power rising and being like, never again, you know, like I will never take that treatment. Like red flag comes up, you're gone. Red flag, gone. You know, like I'm not even, there's no, But what I was going to say was it is absolutely trippy, is it not, being in a conscious relationship?
It's everything.
It really is, because me and my roommate have it too, and
Right.
it's she's my first, like, even though we're not romantic, it's absolutely just as twin flamey or mirrory as any relationship
Right.
could be, you know. And it's trippy because you work it consciously. Like, you absolutely have ego and unconscious and snap on each other and act stupid, but afterwards it's totally different than it used to be. You know, afterwards you wouldn't
Right.
fight or hold pride. You immediately get to lessening and, like, what's the lesson here? Why did I act like this? I'm not shaming myself right now. I need to figure out why the fuck I just reacted that way. You know, and, like, your partner gives you space to do so instead of
Right.
hounding you. And it's
So
cool.
good.
It's like,
We nitpick each other to death, like
yeah,
birds, like pecking each other in trauma. And it is the most toxic thing that we can do, is to hound someone to fulfill some sort of an emotional comfort, because it triggers codependency in a lot of us. And
Yep.
that's where the distortion happens, because we go into, like, oh my God, loss, abandonment, codependency, and then it's like we got to do everything we can so we can feel better, but not actually focusing on the person who's having the issue in the beginning. It's the
Yeah.
most toxic environment ever. And so
Yeah.
that's where we have to step back and become empowered in ourselves, because
Yeah.
when you really love yourself, you won't take anything less from anybody else, because people, we get into the victim mindset. Well, he treated me this way and she treated me that way, and, like, I learned to say, well, boo, like, you're the one allowing it, right? It's like I realized that I was the one allowing it.
Yeah.
And so that's when everything changed for me, because it's like,
Yeah.
if I'm not empowered in myself, everybody can run game on me. But if I'm empowered in myself, I'm sit back and watching you, so I know what you're doing before you even do it, right?
Yeah.
It's like that kind of mentality that starts to take place, and we can get dialed in with each other and learning each other's body language and being an observer, so we don't have to get so triggered when something happens, because we mostly ignore signs in a relationship. We wait until it blows up, or the other person shuts down and isn't talking anymore. And then it's like becomes this thing that isn't necessary. It's so dramatic. We as humans are such dramatic beings, and it doesn't have to be that way. We have to recalibrate our nervous system so that we're not so triggered by everything on this planet, because this is a triggering planet.
Yeah. Me and my roommate, we've had this there's like two things that we consciously have learned in relationships. I don't mind if I add this, but, like, one was that whenever whenever I'm in pain or she's in pain and it's spilling over and she's doing something to me or I'm doing something to her that's hurting her, if one of us brings it up to each other, it's not a moment for the other person to bring up shit that the other person's doing.
Right.
Ever. You know, it's like, this is my moment to bash you and tell you all the shit you're doing to me and set a boundary. And you're not going to talk about anything I've done. Whenever your pain is spilling over, you can talk to me about it. But right now, my pain is spilling over on, you know, and, like, and then the other thing was, whenever we're having a conscious, like, what was it? I forgot the fuck what I was going to talk about. You go ahead, though.
But that is the thing about what we do in conflict, because we're so wounded as a society that we can't even sit still and be open to receive what the other person has to say about us.
Yeah.
And more times, well, I won't judge it, but I'll say there's a lot of the time when that person is right, when they're calling us out. Instead, the narcissistic characteristic traits start to kick in, and then we shift it around to the other person, not even addressing what they were feeling from the beginning. And it's so dysfunctional. All it does is it deepens the wounds that are already there, and it just causes so much static electricity. So that's why it's like we have to really take a look at ourselves and to ask, are we really loving beings? Are we really open and compassionate to the people in our lives that we say we love? Because most of the time, we as humans, we treat the people that we love the worst. It's so dysfunctional. It's so insane. I told David not that long ago, I was like, dude, you're the only person I argue with, and I have to stop. I'm not going to argue I don't want to argue with you. It's like we've got to work this out. Like we share each other's bodies with each other. We share our whole lives with each other. Like we should be like bowing down to each other and washing each other's feet and just like treating each other like the god and goddesses that we are, instead of constantly projecting, oh, well, you said this about me. And it's like, well, honey, because it's true, right? It's like, can't you just be open enough to take on what I'm saying? So that's where, and it starts from childhood, because we're told, no, shush, go to your room because I said so, get outside. We're not taught compassion to listening and understanding as a child, so that trait gets carried over into our relationships. And that's why we fail so much.
I think the hardest thing for me as a masculine to do along my whole ascension journey is the fact that I constantly feel like a villain, and like I'm constantly having to admit I'm wrong, and that's hard. That's like one of the harder things, to be like, yep, I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I just fucked up, and like everybody's always talking about being a victim and how they got done wrong, but I'm the one over here always doing people dirty, and so I'm like, shit, man, I'm healing some dark shit here, like shit people don't even want to fucking talk about, and that's the hard stuff. I remember what I was gonna say. And then the other rule that we had with our relationships was that I started to realize, because I am the person that gets to a level 10 and then I freak out on somebody because I've held everything in. So now I've learned to talk to somebody at level 2. But whenever I bring it to them at level 2, it's not as harsh, but I do have to check them. I have to check my roommate and other people and be like, you told me to bring this to you whenever I wasn't so angry, and now you're defending again. Like, you can't do that right now. I'm bringing it to you in a nice manner. Let's discuss this before I freak the fuck out here in 5 days, because this is getting too bad. Like, and so it's crazy, because communication is everything. It's everything. It's everything that we're working on. That's it. It's like, because we're the mind experiencing vessels and we're just mind, communication is the only thing that we have a problem with right now. Is like
tone. It's tone. It's body language. And the tone of which we speak. Because this is the thing. If we want to talk to somebody about how they pissed us off because we're on some tangent about whatever, right? Because we're so entitled as humans too. But we think the world revolves around us. And so the thing is, it's like, if you're going to talk to somebody about something that you probably know is going to trigger them, the last thing we want to do is to go in it angry. Because you're going to press their wound, and then they're going to come back with a fire that is now out of control in that triggered solar plexus. And so that's one of the things I'm learning too. It's like learning to be able to talk when the energy isn't so heightened that you're not even seeing each other at that point. And then you can sit and have conscious conflict resolution, talking about things when there isn't an argument. Right, when we're in a place of love is really how to heal. Because I just get up and walk away now. It's like, no, you're triggered. I'm triggered. I'm not doing it.
I recognize this shit comes from how we learned, how we watched conflict resolution growing up.
Right.
We watched our parents argue. So that's how we get it done. And like I have to catch myself all the time when I'm in conversation, or we're having some kind of, or something's happening between me and my roommate, where I'll have to be like, hold on, all right, let me lower my tone. I'll notice that my voice is all up and I'm almost yelling.
That's the mastery.
Boom. I'm like, hold on, wait a minute, my energy's not where it's supposed to be right now. I'm like, I'm trying to get a point across and it's coming out like defensive, and I need to get out of this defense mode and just speak. And I realized it all comes from defensiveness. I told my roommate that one time, I actually snapped on her one day. I said, I'm sick of every time, I said to her one day, can we start putting the bread up here and not putting it down there? And I could have been the person that put the bread down there. She could have been. I was just kind of saying a general idea. And then she would get defensive and be like, I didn't do that. And I'd be like, look, man, I'm just trying to tell you, this is going to make our lives easier if we do this. And then we had to work through these, and she actually is absolutely epic with it now. And now, or if she responds in that defensive way, I don't take it personal, because I know that I know as a kid, her stepdad nitpicked her. Her stepdad absolutely nitpicked her. So you have to I think the best way for us to heal in relationships is find out what was your childhood like? You know,
Right.
and what's your trauma responses, and how do you
Right.
react to trauma? And now I can see that and know I ain't got to take it personal. It's not about me. It's about you.
Right.
You know,
We take on too much. We
yeah,
take on too much. We get so dramatic about the most ridiculous, mundane things. It's like if somebody isn't like sick to death or hurting someone physically, everything else is just like ego, right?
yeah,
It's like, and a lot of the time it's because we're in relationships where we're not happy because we're not happy with ourselves. And then we expect this person to subconsciously fill us up. And when they don't live up to our expectations of what we want love to be, we then shame and guilt them.
mm-hmm.
It's like such a toxic trait.
Yeah.
And it's like that's why doing the independent work is so powerful, because then you're not dependent on someone to make you happy. You just are happy. Like
Yeah.
the relationship is about coming together to create business and high
Mm-hmm.
mind and to
Yeah.
be healthy in the body and things like that. And then the other thing that causes a lot of issues in relationships is that the throat chakra is so damaged from the solar plexus taking on so much toxicity from other people that we're not empowered in our voice and we don't speak our truth. And so when we don't speak our truth about things that are happening, guess what happens? It builds up and builds up and builds up. And then a week later, one little thing happens. And then all of a sudden the house is burning down over the most ridiculous things. And we're penetrating that onto children. And we're continuing to display that dysfunction. And then that's why we have to like get out of that and like really recognize that so many of us are in defense mode. We have these walls up where we think everything is a threat. And it's like, no, honey, it's not all about you. That person has their own feelings too.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel like mainstream spirituality is really tainted, like being human. Like, because when everybody started getting spiritual and waking up, their egos just shifted to a different identity of spiritualism. And then now everybody's triggered and you're doing this to me. You're doing this to me. Like people can't take jokes no more. You can't be human no more in the spiritual community
It gets
because
intense.
everybody's triggered and pissed off about something. And it's like, it's not really about you, yo. Like, you're just looking for something to fucking complain about and call somebody out about and be a tyrant. You know what I mean?
Well, I
Like,
think it's part of the process of unlearning and recalibrating into the newness. It definitely leads a pathway. Like one of the things that is really interesting, and I had to go through my own path on this too, is that you attract what you are. It's like, dude,
yeah,
no.
That's the hardest thing for people.
We're all attracting each other because we're all the same thing. We all have rage. We all have compassion. It's just all gets displayed differently. It's like you coming at me, talking to me like this is not my magnetism. But here I am holding space with you while you do it. It's like, no, I'm not taking on other people's stuff like that. Right? Mm-hmm. It's like you can't penetrate on that on me and tell me, well, you manifested that for yourself. It's like, no.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. And that's a huge aspect. Now, granted, when we do the work and we upgrade the frequency and now we're like attracting differently, that does shift. It is amazing to see how the poles do shift and our magnetism is different. But there's still other people having their own magnetism happening for them. And because we're in this crazy rotation of integrating with other people, I feel like sometimes it's like a test or just for us to realize that, well, I have those traits too. So I'm compassionate with you, but no, right? Like it brings us to a greater sense of understanding rather than taking on, well, oh, that must be because there's something wrong with me. It's
That's
like,
exactly what I'm getting at is, that's what I said earlier, is that like, it seems like with each human I encounter, they will display something that I once did or an aspect of me that, quite frankly, isn't in alignment with what I want. And then I'll have to look at them and say, well, I understand why they're there because I've been there before, but I just don't want a part of that. You know what I
Right.
mean? And like it does open up. What I think it brings in is complete Christ consciousness. You're just
Right.
sitting there in complete neutrality of like, you're not judging this human, but you are understanding that vibrationally you're not in alignment with them anymore. You don't want to be around that. Like, it's so trippy as we really are becoming Jesus like. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I am. I don't know about you. I don't like, I wasn't ever biblical, but I feel like I'm Buddha, or I'm, even when I said one day, I said, even when I make mistakes and I fuck up and I'm an ego and I'm unconscious and I do stuff I shouldn't do, I'm still in love because I'm immediately trying to find my way back to love as quick as I can. So the moment I become conscious that I'm acting out of character or in a reaction phase, I'm shooting back to love as quick as I can. So like, that makes me fucking perfect. I'm epic. I'm
Right.
Christ. I'm the best there is, like,
Right.
and I feel like you embody that. I know people, we all, once we start to understand this vessel and get the healing, how it works, like you said, I'm in a conscious relationship with a man and we ain't perfect, and we work
Right.
this together. And like, you wouldn't have been able to do that 2 or 3 years ago because your mind probably told you had to be perfect to be in a
Right.
conscious relationship.
Right. Oh,
Right.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the thing about Jesus and Buddha, that's a representation of who we are.
Right.
It's theology, man's manipulation techniques that put him on a pedestal that
Right.
tell us we have to perform in such a way. It's like,
Right.
oh, no. Like in the Bible, Jesus hung out with the prostitutes and
Drink.
but he was laying his hands on people, and there's all this representation. So a lot of people will put those deities up on a pedestal because their soul wants to be exalted so much into that light
Right.
but we're taught on this planet to reach outside of ourselves for that, or
Right.
at least in the West. Now I know that there are other countries where they don't,
Yeah,
but
Hinduism so much isn't like that.
that's part of our programming in Europe and America and all of that. But the thing is that that's who we are. It's a representation of all of those characteristic traits. So when we talk about the Christ consciousness, it's about the exalting of that lower realm, right? It's like the devil and in God, it all encompasses who we are. It's our shadow side. It's our light side. We're on this planet in duality because those are the aspects. I mean, so many religious and conscious texts have talked about this to us, trying to wake us up for centuries, right? Like centuries trying to wake us up so that we can come out of this demure of black sludge or whatever it is that has been controlling the consciousness of humans on this planet, because it doesn't make sense, right? So what's the one thing they use? Religion and sex to shame us all, to make us feel guilty and that we must repent to go to this place. And it's like, no, the repentance is for now. Like the heaven is going into the light now. And it's not somewhere after. It's like live your life now, right? Like that's the biggest thing I've come to learn about religion, is that I knew it didn't make sense to me as a child. And then when I started going through my awakening in the beginning, I started reading the Bible. As I went to church several times because I connected to the message, not the man speaking the message, right? Because that's on a totally different playground.
Right, I know I can feel it too. Yeah, I know what you mean. You can feel love in church, in some churches, you can feel the love, but the messages can be distorted, obviously.
Well, they can be. I mean, they tell us to hate homosexuals. The Bible talks
I remember
about.
I experienced
I know.
Brother Dane. I mean, this pastor literally, because I told him, I said, hey man, what am I supposed to do about my daughter? She's like got a physical condition, congenital adrenal hyperplasia, and her doctor told us that she's probably going to end up gay because she got more testosterone than she did estrogen.
Right.
And he's like, well, she's going to have to make the right choice. And then him and his wife showed up in my crib and said, can you please not tell anybody else at the church about that? And, we don't want anybody else to hear about that or know about that. People are questioning things. And I was like, I'll never do that. Fuck y'all. You know what I mean? Like, and that was my last time stepping foot in the church.
Right.
It was cool it's crazy because everything that's happened to us, even though it could be called negative or bad, it was like so divine. You look back on it and you're like, dude, it's like a movie, you know, like they did a really good job. My higher self's crazy. It was like I knew what it was doing the whole time, you know, like it's just trippy, man. Like this really is a really cool movie that we're enjoying, you know, that we
I
really
like this part of the movie.
I do too. This is, I think, the good part of the movie where it's about to, like, where the heroes really are starting to kind of like see themselves and
Power
step
to
into
the people. Power to the people.
Yeah, this is the good part of the movie, man. I can feel it. I can totally, like, we went through the hard part over the last 4 years.
Yes.
Because, you know, I've been going through shadow work for like a year and a half now. Like, I was like grade A Mr. fucking Ascension guy 2.5 years ago, and then some more shadow work smoked me. And
me too. It happened to me too. The first like 4 years, it was so galactic and cosmic and just like, oh my God, I was like on another level. And then the last 2 years, it brought me down into the lower, darker realms of the collective, right? I was like, oh my God, what happened to all the fun stages of this? I mean, the shadow work has been intense these last 2 years. And I knew it was a reflection of the paradigm shift because the poles are flipping. They talk about this fake climate change all the time, but really it's the poles flipping, man. Like the Great Flood, like this was bad. Like this planet is shaking itself up. And it's regenerating itself, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like it's a lot of it sucks, but when you step outside of the human realm and look at it from space, looking back down on the earth, you know that this is what has to happen.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's trippy because like I don't really ever get to feel my galactic self, but I can totally use my imagination to feel it, almost like project myself out there. And like, dude, like if we knew how, like, so many souls wish they could be human, and we're sitting here kicking it on the front lines. Like I said in one of my songs that we're the indigos are like the spiritual marines, and like we're like the fucking frontline warriors that are down here, and some people are sacrificing themselves and dying to get through, you know, to help us get through this portal opening. And like, this is insane, but it's fucking the dopest movie that you could have ever watched.
It's the greatest movement ever.
Yeah, it's so cool because I feel like you're close to my star system, or me and you have lived lives together or something, because I know you. But it's cool rubbing shoulders with people that I can tell are from other galactic systems that just aren't from where I'm from. You know,
I'm not from here for sure.
Oh hell no, I don't. I know that I'm Pleiadian, Lyran. I've had a Syrian life, but I resonate mostly closely with my Pleiadian life. But like, it's just crazy that we, you know, like, I don't, like you said earlier, the last 2 years, it's been just straight shadow work.
Yeah, and so much. And physical healing too in the body, body transformation.
Yeah, because I was going through so much healing physically too. You know, rashes on my body to, you know, my herpes outflare, all the dumb shit I go through, you know, like that, all that stuff was just like, I've had that hardcore for 2 years. But like this 2 years though, got us grounded in our human vessels. That's for damn sure. I felt fucking human again. Like, and I didn't from when 2016 to 2017, I felt like, you know, I'd be like talking to people like, you are a fucking human, and I'm not. You know, like I did not feel, I felt 6 feet out of my body all the time. I didn't feel grounded. I feel very grounded now, very balanced. I think we had a lot of masculine push energy in the beginning of our awakening to learn how to do it. And then we went feminine into our shadows. And like now, like we understand how to rock that feminine energy in our shadows. And like, it's time for us to reapply the masculine that we already know how to do. You know what I mean? So,
and one of the downloads I've had about this whole pandemic thing that's been going on in the last 2 years is that while it looks so insane, we have to think about the physical upgrading that's happening to the consciousness of humans all over the planet, because millions of people all got sick at one time, which means the antibodies are boosting up so much in all of these bodies. Okay, that's one thing. The other thing is too, is that not in America, because it's not the land of the free as they portray, but in all these other countries, all these people are taking ivermectin. What is ivermectin? It's a parasite killer. So not only are people getting sick and having their immune systems boosted, they're taking ivermectin and they're purging parasites. Like, so much of that lower vibrational frequency that's been in the bodies of so many people all over the world got a massive upgrade, a clearing at one time. So my consciousness always seems to find the silver lining in even the most destruction. Right. And so when I saw all of that, I was like, oh my God, this is part of the collective upgrading for humanity. Like, it's so like amazing to see how all of that's happened. So I'm excited to see how the next couple of few years are going to be. The laws are still going to keep coming down. Like things are changing so crazy, like it's so fast. And I know there's going to be a lot more destruction and ripping down the walls of the old paradigm. So my advice to everyone is just keep breathing and keep loving and letting go and just holding space, letting the planet do what it's doing, not taking it all on so personally, even though that's way harder to do. I know that. Change the world. All we got to do is hold space and create change in our own microcosm. Yes. Right? In our own space, because that penetrates out into the web, and that's how we're changing the vibration.
Yes, yes. I always try to tell people that like, you don't have to change the world. You don't have to take on everything. You know, like, stick to your shadow work and the shit you work on and healing yourself. And like you said, changing your world. And like, that is all you got to do. And it don't get to be complicated. Like, that'll be complicated enough. You know?
Right. And stand up for our human rights. We got to stand up, right? Like, that's the beautiful thing. And that's been one of the most amazing things for me to witness, is how people are done. Like, we are done with it, and they know it. So what happens when the consciousness doesn't want to let go? It tries so hard to do everything it can to fight it until it has to surrender. And we're in the fighting stage. Like humans are done with this dimension, and it's time to level it up. And so I'm excited to see the changes that are happening and how all of this is going to evolve. And if we stop putting up with the slavery on this planet, people not making money, these like minimum wage crap and raising all the rent, and it's like really interesting everything that's going on. And that's why we have to become sovereign and to help each other and get back to that tribe mentality where no man left behind type thing. Like, we got to grow food. We got to share food. We need to start creating our own schools and our own communities to teach the reality of what people really need to know, and not be indoctrinated in the school system that we're told that we must do to achieve this dream, which is a facade for them to make more money.
I can't wait till we actually start to make that movement. Like, us.
It's happening. It's already happening. It's like TikTok has been one of the most eye-opening things for me, because every scroll is another person identifying their own personal sovereignty. I'm just like, yes, it's the movement. People are doing it.
Dude, one of my favorite artists is awakening. He's in Hollywood 10 years, you know, like. And he's like, it's evident on TikTok, there's a spiritual awakening happening. You can see in his music, it's happening. Like, dude, everybody is shifting. It really is. It's dope.
So many people are. So many. And it's a trickle-down effect. It's going to keep happening. More and more people are going to awake. Like, the last 2 years has been the red button to press to wake up the masses. And unfortunately, on this planet, we have to have a lot of trauma to do that. So humanity's going through its trauma right now.
Yeah, like, this is how I was told. Well, the Pleiadians kind of channeled the message in from Barbara and Marcy Anderson, but they said that, like, we're trying to jam pack 300 years of healing in like 25 years, you know? And they said that's really what we're doing.
Yes.
And they said, so how we did that is, like, we brought Hitler to you guys. And they're like, huh? Like, you mean angels dropped Hitler to the planet? And they're like, yes, we sure did. And you're like, that was gruesome and terrible. They're like, yeah, but Hitler, doing what he did, unified the planet and brought the planet together for the first time ever, when they didn't before. And like, got a bunch of people to ally and work together. And like, so on a fifth dimensional scale, we just bypassed 200 years of shit that, you know, with that trauma, we kicked you guys in gear and got you guys to work together now, didn't we? You know,
right.
And like, that's like, it sucks that that's, I love how I don't know what I watched, but they said angels and demons work together in the sixth dimension, and I loved that.
It
Like,
seems like something's going on like that, doesn't it?
yeah, like they said basically that like an angel will whisper to you in your ear and try to tell you like what to do. You don't listen, so the angel will go to your demon and be like, give them what the fuck they want, so
Right.
they learn. You know, and like so they're working together. It's
It's
unity to
weird.
them too. Like even though we think they're not unity, we think they're fighting against each other, but it's not. It's unity. And when we finally
Yeah.
start to realize that shit's whenever a lot of healing starts to occur for me, because I
Right.
stopped playing the victim. I stopped
Yes.
like blaming everything.
Yes, exactly. And I can attest to that as being truth because of the clairaudience. Me hearing so much of the dark and the light. Like I do most of my work in the shadows.
Right.
And it's like so intense sometimes, but it's the most empowering thing because I don't have to be scared of it. Like,
No.
why be scared of ourselves? Why be scared of other people? Why be scared to say how we feel? It's like so ridiculous when you really think about it. It's like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? It's like
Yeah.
so insane to be
Yeah.
afraid to tell someone how we feel or to go, screw you, I'm not standing for this job anymore. And to like just go off into our own paths. And it's scary to do that because we live in a paradigm where money is king. But it's
Yeah.
like it doesn't have to be. We just have to break outside of that and trust that source is going to provide, and it does. It blows me away.
Man, it does. It blows me away too. Every time that I think that I'm like may not make it or may not manifest what I need, like it's there. And
Right on time.
I'm like, holy shit, man! You only come right on time though. Why can't you come a little quicker? You
So
know?
it's about healing that and learning how to really have patience with that to collapse the gap and such having to rebuild from such emotional upheavals during that cycle
Yeah.
because it's tough, right? But the thing is that if we lean on each other, if we have each other as a tribe, then no one has to go without. And so it's like I really feel like more and more people, this is one of my goals, and I would love to like create crowdfunding or do something to where we get a big piece of property and we start building communities and we take our
That's what I'm
power
trying to
back.
do.
We do not have to be dependent on this system
That's
at
what because
all.
me and all my friends that I run shoulders with, like a bunch of them quit their jobs because they didn't want to get the job and all this kind of shit. So
Right.
everybody's struggling money wise, and I was like, why aren't we taking a look at this and seeing what Spirit's doing to us?
Right.
Spirit has us struggling for a reason because they want us to stop trying to do this alone. You
Right.
know? Like they want us to go buy a big property, a mansion or some shit on a big property. We can all live in that mansion as we build homes around it and get the,
Right.
like,
I mean, we can live in tents while we build. Like we
fuck
can get
yeah.
really primitive and get outside of this materialistic realm that we think
Yeah.
we have to survive. And it's like, I mean, in Hawaii, I've lived off grid a lot over the last several years living in Hawaii, and we do it here every day,
Yeah.
living off of solar, doing water catchment,
Right.
totally off grid. And it's awesome to see how fruitful that can be.
Yeah,
And
the
then
energy's
the
different.
sovereignty feeling you get from not having to depend on the system when you grow your own food, you catch your own water, you create your own energy. It's like, it's on another level that I feel like most people don't even know.
Right.
But it's right there. We can do
Yeah.
it at any time we want.
The most I've experienced was 8 days at Sundance whenever we all camped together. It was like at Sundance, which is a Lakota ceremony, there's like 200, 300 people. It's 8 days of like tribal mentality. And it's the only time I've ever got to like really feel what it felt like to be totally taken care of. I remember I had Poison Ivy and this elder come over with this shit and she's all putting it on me and they're all taking care of me. I'm like, what the fuck is happening? Like, oh, this is how life is supposed to be. Like,
right.
I'm not supposed to
struggle and suffer to do it all on our own. That's what they told us to do. That's what they made us believe, right?
Yeah.
And it's
you don't
like,
even know your neighbors really, you know what I mean, in the real world before and we should be leaning on each other and really working with each other, I'm excited because what you're talking about is what I believe is coming in the next few years.
It's happening.
We're going to be moving in with each other here soon, like all of us. And my goal is, my music and how I'm going to be chasing, not chasing it. I'm attracting my music to come.
Right. You're following your path.
Yes. And my big goal with my music is to, whenever the millions start to roll in, I'm going to like create a community, say like in Gatlinburg near Tennessee. And then I'm going to create a community exactly like it, like in Cali, and then one across seas. So like the idea for me is, I hate being stationary and sitting in one place and staying in the same spot, because I've never left my home city for 38 years. So I want to be able to bounce around different places in the world, but I don't want to wonder what it's going to be like at the face. So I want each facility to be the same. So when you move in, like you can be like, hey, I'm done with this place, I want to move somewhere else. You can go live in another facility just like it. And, you know, you'll know everything. It won't be different to you. Nothing will be new. It'll be exact same, just new scenery. That's my
and the beautiful thing is too, is that there's so many communities around the planet that are already doing that. So anyone can tap in and just Google intentional communities and put the country or the state and go experience it and get outside of the paradigm of the materialistic thing and get back to the roots.
Yes, that's what I'm excited about, man.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on. It's almost 2 hours. I know you said you had to get somewhere, so
yes.
This has been awesome, man. I appreciate you more than you know.
This has been fun, B.
Yeah, it really has. We definitely should get on here and do some more talks, just where you just drop information to humans, man. Because
let's do it, and we can channel with people too. And things like that. Like if someone wanted to get on with us and channel with them and talk to them. I mean, I would love to start doing so. Like, let's powwow, right? Like, let's get
that's
together.
What I'm talking about is the unity, where if healers start working together too more and just collaborating, it just brings about more better. Like when I watch you and what's your friend's name?
Zane.
When I watch you guys, man, I just feel you guys are excited, and like I love what I need to feel in my ascension is inspiration, like not motivation. I don't give a fuck about that, because I need to be inspired, and I want to see you when I see us doing stuff. Like I'm like, dude, they're inspired. They are fucking glowing right now. Yeah, definitely. Like I do have her email at the bottom, guys. If you need to book a session with her, hit her email address up, or you can hit her up on Facebook, I'm sure, or something like that, right?
Yes. And my YouTube channel too. My name Lori Ivey, and this has been so great. I love spending time talking story and manifesting greatness for the collective, and just showing people a different reality, right? That's how we really get that activation to open up that DNA and get connected in the heart space, and we can create that platform for anyone to step into. So thank you for creating that space for me to step into and other people. And I love you so much. And let's do something again soon.
Definitely. Love you, Lori. I'll see you later.
Okay. Love you too. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye. I appreciate you guys sticking through this. And thank Lori so much for that. It was pretty fucking dope. I've been wanting to talk to her and kind of find out about her and like really dive in to see what her story was about for a while. So that was dope to be able to share that with y'all. I love you guys so much. And don't forget to hit up Lori if you guys need a session from her. She's got some dope shit, guys, for you. So be sure to hit her up on her email address or her Facebook page. And you guys be sure to have a badass day and check out my podcast on Friday, where I'll be interviewing my homie Jesse Howe. He has his own podcast, The Missing Link, which is really dope. He's interviewed some fucking powerhouses. So I figured it's time to interview him and let him get a little time to talk, since he's always the one doing the interviewing. So I love you guys, and I'll see you Friday. Peace out.